Well, take a look at this violin. It is absolutely insane. So basically the top plate has been totally crushed by the Chinrest. Have a look at this. It's just incredible. You can see the whole edge just coming off. So I'm gonna have to do quite a bit of work to this violin. It's a Colin Mezin violin. I will have to firstly allow the timber to kind of swell out again using humidity. And then I will have to repair the edge, and then I have to do double edging. So it's quite a big repair. But the first step is to take off the strings and the top plate. So I'm going to do that. I have to take off the top plate very carefully because I don't want to lose any of the pieces, and I will actually clean up around my workbench as well when I do that. Okay, so here it is. It is very loose around here. Okay, I actually left it last night because I was getting close to finishing for the day, and the top plate is glued on quite strongly on this violin, so I wanted to make sure I had enough time to get that all under control. Now, if you're a violin maker, it's important to know, don't glue the top plate on too strongly. It's because when it needs to get taken off again, like the maker opening the instrument can actually cause some real damage. It's this balance, you know, strong enough to hold, but not too strong that it's almost impossible to take off. This is quite tricky. So the player of this violin really loves playing. Quite often he'll play with a pickup. He plays quite a lot for his church, and he was saying that it brings such a nice thing to the worship service to have some violin playing in there as well as the rest of the service. Alright, I'm just pouring a tiny bit of metho onto the join here. Okay, so this area is opening a little bit easier, which makes me very happy because that other join was horrendous. It was just so firmly glued on. Now this is the area here where it's all crushed, so that opened well. Okay, there's just the last little bit here. That was a really hard one to take off. Yeah, and the problem is that the purfling, see how the purfling was cut all the way through? So I have to do double edging. So the problem wasn't just the Chinrest, it was also that the purfling, that combination, that when a violin maker, when they cut the purfling, they have a special purfling cutter like these two. They have two blades that cut into the wood. And if they cut too far, they can cut right through and risks these kinds of repair. You literally cut right through the edge and the edge can come loose. Yeah, this is really quite bad. Take a look at that. Okay, I'm just gonna take off for a quick morning meeting coffee, and then afterwards I'll see what the next steps are. Hey guys, so today is the weekend, but I just want to do one little thing on this violin that'll get me ahead, and that is to soak the area that has been compressed to allow the wood to decompress a bit. So I didn't show you, but in the process of opening, like this violin was glued on really hard, and so in the process of opening there was just tiny bit of splitting that happened. So I fixed that yesterday. This is really important. You don't want to lose even a single splinter, because each splinter, you know, is part of the instrument, and so they're quite sacred. So I've just glued some of these splinters back on. I'll just take off the clamps. Now I have to be super careful not to lose any of these pieces, because they are just hanging on by a thread. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to soak the compacted areas with a very small dab of cotton wool that is wet. I'm just going to get in closer. There's one. To stop the wet from. I did actually put a tiny bit of Glad wrap on to protect the edge from humidity from the cotton wool. Alright, so this is my Saturday job, just soaking that spot and allowing it to expand, like allowing the fibres to expand again. Hopefully it'll get rid of some of that compression. May have to use a little bit of heat at some point, like heat the area up, but hopefully it'll decompress quite a bit just using water. Good morning, it's a Monday morning and I've been soaking this a little bit on the weekend. So this side looks really good, but the left side is still really quite crushed. So I'm going to soak it some more and hopefully that will fix it. I might just, while I'm doing that, I might just see, you can see there's all this rosin buildup on the top plate. So I'm just going to clean that off as well. This is quite a, like on the Colin Mezin, they use quite a stable and strong varnish. I'll be able to soak the little patch of rosin that's on there and that will make things much easier to clean up. I'm not going to leave that on there quite as long as the other areas. Okay, I'm going to pop that aside. I'll set myself an alarm for 15 minutes and I'll do some other work. Okay, you can see after soaking that for just 15 minutes, it's all turned white. The dirt has turned white. Like I said, you can't do that on every varnish. I just know the varnish from the Colin Mezin so well that I know it's totally fine. Yeah, the dirt's just coming off really easily now. And the varnish is totally stable. Okay, it's been a few days, so today I'm gonna really get into it. So this little piece fell off as I was working on it. I've still got it here, but you can see it's looking a lot better. I think that's as much as I'll be able to expand that crushed timber. I don't think I can do any more than that. Next, there's just a tiny little crack here, and then this edge is loose. So that tiny little crack is actually, it doesn't need clamping because it's actually held together quite strongly. But gluing this edge down, I'll be using a little specialized clamp. All right, here we go. Let's get the glue on there. Okay, so that's glued together now. I have to let that dry for at least 4 hours. So it's the middle of the morning right now, so that should be finished this afternoon. And then I'm going to make the counter mold for this area so that I can double the edge. If you're a violin maker, how you make your instrument actually has an effect on how well it lasts. And when you're cutting the purfling channel, don't cut it too deep. Like this purfling channel has been cut down so deep that in places it's actually been cut all the way through the top plate, making the whole edge weak. So that's not a good idea because, you know, it leaves at some point in the future, someone will have to get an expensive repair done. And double edging is not an easy thing to do. Yes, this is just my message to you violin makers who are watching. I'm going to pop this aside to dry now and hopefully I will get back to it later this afternoon. Okay, it's the next day. I didn't actually manage to get the clamp off yesterday. The afternoon got a bit busy. That's quite normal for me. There's not a super hurry. Okay, fantastic. So that is now glued together. Now I've got to do the counter mold, which is always fun. Okay, so I've got my clamps ready. This was a previous counter mold I had made for a different instrument, so I'm just going to use that. I'm going to use some Glad wrap to put over the top of that. And then I've got my, what they call builder's bog or car repair putty, which I'm going to use. Alright. Really smells. It's like epoxy resin, so it's a little bit like fiberglass. That should be enough. Alright, let's mix these two together. Now I've got to move really fast. Just spread it on like Nutella on a sandwich, very thick. It goes hard quite quickly. There. And now let's put it on the instrument. Clamp here, clamp here. It's still soft. Okay, you can see it all squeezing out over the edges. That's a good thing, because that's going to give me a really good working platform. Yeah, so this is the counter mold done. I've just got to wait for that to harden, and then I'm not going to do that today, it's the weekend, so I'll wait till Monday, and then I will fit the piece on Monday, and then I'll be able to close up the instrument either later on Monday or Tuesday. So this has definitely hardened now, so I'm going to draw in where I'm going to fit this, and it's literally just this little area here where the chinrest was, and now I'm going to just work that region back. So I'm going to cut and use a rasp to prepare the area. I have this little trick to file this area really level. I'll show you in a minute, it's kind of cool. So I've put on this little guide, so that'll make life a lot easier. That's just here. So now when I file, it kind of guides it. So I want to go about halfway into the top plate where the purfling is here. That way the purfling is really well reinforced and you won't have that edge coming off the way it did before. So now I'm going to use the finer part of the file to smooth that down a little bit. Okay, so that is getting very close to being ready for me to fit a piece. Actually, I will already get a piece and see how it all works. But you can see I've cut through the purfling, like through the top plate towards the purfling here. The edges are really held in nicely by the counter mold that I made, and so that will come together really beautifully. Okay, so I found this piece of timber. It's actually fairly old wood. It's probably from the 1930s or so. Very similar age to the timber used on this instrument, so that's good. Okay, so I prepped this piece of wood. The grain is just a little bit finer, but I'll try and use the wider part of the grain. Let me just see, just gonna mark this in. Okay, so I've roughly prepped this piece. It's still a little ways off. Okay, so this fits amazingly now. The time has come to glue it in. So I'll get my clamps ready, my glue's already on, because I want to see if I can get this violin closed for tomorrow. Okay, I've got my clamps ready. Right here I've got a clamping block so that I can distribute the pressure very evenly. The glue is hot and ready to go, so I've got to work really fast. I'm going to distribute glue onto both sides. There we go. Don't want to put too much pressure on it because it could cause a crack. Now I'm just going to put these two clamps on. Okay, that can just dry overnight, and tomorrow I will take the clamps off. I can take the counter mold off and we'll see how it's all turned out. Hopefully really well. Good morning. So the glue on the violin top plate dried overnight and I can take the clamps off. This is a scary moment. It's not really scary. Well, it is scary if I can't get this cast off. But that is looking very good. Okay, fantastic. I can now glue this top plate on. The only thing I want to do is I want to just polish this little area one more time, because I mean, how often can you polish under the fingerboard? So when the opportunity is there, you've got to take it. So I always recommend to people to have under the fingerboard polished when the top plate is off or when the fingerboard is off. Nice, that is looking good. How much nicer is that? Alright, let's get the rest of the instrument and just see how it all fits together. That's all fitting together beautifully. So I'll just get my clamps ready and we'll be ready to go. Okay, my glue is hot and I will just get started. Now I've got to move really quickly here. Okay, I always do the C-bouts first. Just want to make sure everything fits. And then from the C-bouts are in the middle of the instrument, and from there I can go either way, like to the outside and to the top and to the bottom. So it makes it a lot easier to get it all right. So I'm just gluing this up theoretically, make sure everything is right, but then I will check the bridge height at the same time because I want to make sure that's perfectly right. Do the bottom block. Okay, let's have a look. I'm just going to check the bridge height. Yep, that's good. And then I have just this special little clamp that I have that goes over the top of the fingerboard. That basically glues down the top block. Alright, I'm just going to very quickly just clean some of the glue off the join here. There's a couple of bits where the glue ran to. You don't want to leave glue on the varnish because it can, when it dries, it shrinks and it can actually strip the varnish in that spot. I think they used a spirit varnish on these Colin Mezins, so yeah, there's a spot here. Okay, I'm just going to put that at the back to dry. It's going to dry for most of the day. And now I just got to take a sip of coffee. Nice. And now we wait. Okay, that's dried all day. It's the evening now, so I can take these clamps off. Okay, let's just check if this has come together. That's sounding really good, and this area is looking so much better. So I'm just going to give it a quick clean, and then I'll put just a tiny bit of varnish on there. So I'm just cleaning the area that was compacted. Now I've just got to let that dry, and as soon as it's dry I'm going to put a tiny bit of varnish on there, and then I'll leave that dry overnight. So I'm just putting a bit of filler varnish on, just tiny little bit, just on the areas that were compacted. Fantastic, that's all done. So I'm going to let that dry overnight, and then tomorrow I will put the saddle back on. Okay, that's dried for a little while, so I can now just put in a small amount of varnish, just a very thin layer. Here we go. And I'll just also just put a tiny bit of varnish just around the edges. So I'm going to wear my magnifying glass. Just make sure that the join where I glued is fully sealed, because with this humidity in Australia, if it's not sealed properly, it can come apart again. May as well put a little bit of varnish on these edges that have been worn away, where the varnish is worn away. That'll protect the instrument for a longer time. Okay, that's all done, so I am just going to let this dry for a few hours, and then later this evening I'm just quickly going to pop in and put on another layer. That can dry overnight, which is very exciting, and then tomorrow I'll do all the final work. Alright, it's the next morning. Today all I'm going to do is finish this area off and finish polishing the instrument and put the strings on. I'm using 1000 grade sandpaper, which is really fine, just smoothing out the varnish a little bit. Alright, the exciting time has come for me to polish the violin. I love polishing because usually when I do the polishing after a repair, it just pulls the whole repair together. So it makes it, you know, like the repair. Right now I can still see some variances and differences in the varnish, but once I start doing the polishing, it all just becomes one, and I mean the secret in a good repair is to make the repair invisible. So yeah, so that's just really exciting. It's an exciting time. I would like to find my, here it is, my polishing varnish. I do spend a bit of time looking for stuff every now and then. That's what happens when you have so many things and not quite enough places to put them. So for any of you young violin makers, if you're watching, make sure your workshop is incredibly well organized, that absolutely everything has a spot. And I know my place looks pretty chaotic at times, but I tend to know where everything is. Now this is already starting to look a whole lot better. I'm going to keep polishing. I also have to polish the sides, and I'll be polishing the instrument for quite a while longer, just to, you know, to get everything looking beautiful and working beautifully. The reason for polishing is, especially with this kind of spirit varnish, after a while these little tiny little cracks and pores appear in the varnish. So those spots where the cracks are no longer really protect the wood. So it's kind of important to keep the surface of the instrument quite closed. That's why a fairly shiny looking instrument, we just know that the surface is totally sealed. You know, you don't want that horrible synthetic shine on an instrument, but you definitely want to get, you know, a decent shine on it to protect it. And I love the kind of French polish because it has a beautiful shine, but it's a very natural sort of a shine, I think. Hey little guy, what you up to? Hey. Good morning. So I have left the violin dry overnight, which is great. And now I will just put the Chinrest on. So I'm just going to show you the area finished. So there you go, the violin is all finished. As you know, I had to do that edge repair because the Chinrest crushed the fibres in the top plate. And so I've put on this Chinrest. We're going to have to work out Chinrest shoulder rest setup now, because obviously the original shoulder rest, because it's part of the Chinrest setup, won't fit. So I'm really hoping this taller Chinrest will work for the player. If not, I do have a slightly lower one that we can also try. So I've just put on the really tall one just to see. But it is, let me see. Oh no, it is exactly the same height, see? But these little feet here can do a lot of damage if you tighten the Chinrest on too much. But anyway, the edges are doubled. It is all ready. It's all good to go. The client's literally coming to pick up this violin in about 20 minutes or so. It'll be nice to have it finished and getting him back into playing. He's really been missing his violin. So there you go. Be careful what you put onto your instrument. But sometimes, I mean, in this case, it wasn't just the client's fault. The edge was actually cut through, the Purfling channel was cut through too deeply, and that's why the edge came off. So my repair actually rectified that. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you liked the video. Remember to subscribe to my channel and hit the little bell if you want to find out every time I post a new video, and please like the video. In the meantime, keep making beautiful music, and I'll see you guys next time. Alright, bye!